Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Stop Loss Investor. My name is Sai, and today we're going to be focusing on Alex Karp, the CEO of Palantir, and also going to look at the politics behind Palantir and see how it will influence their ability to generate revenue as well as move forward as the election's coming up and see how the possibility of a Democratic government or even another Republican government could impact the company's future. So first, I want to talk about the CEO, Alex Karp, just to give a quick background of who he is, what his background is, and what his technical background is, because he's the CEO of a data analytics company. So Karp grew up in a liberal household and considers himself to be a progressive. He has openly criticized Trump and has voted for Hillary Clinton during her campaign in 2016. He has studied at Stanford, where he met Peter Thiel, who is the co-founder of Palantir, and he also has a PhD in philosophy from the University of Frankfurt. So just from that sentence alone, we can see that he has no technical background. I mean, he's not someone who has a degree in computer science. He hasn't done machine learning. He doesn't have any data analytics background. He has founded a company in London called the Catamon Group, which is a financial consulting company. So it doesn't have anything to do with data analytics either. So from there alone, we can see that he can go into two campaigns. Two sections of being a CEO. He can either be the leader, much to the likes of Steve Jobs, someone who maybe might have a limited technical background, but he's very much who can get the job done and knows is an innovative thinker. Or you can go the background of a classic businessman, focuses on revenues, focuses on earnings, and focuses on short-term movements to gain, I guess, a higher stock price. So I believe he lands in the former, where he's seen as a leader, he's seen as a thinker, an innovator, and really the PhD in philosophy really says something about his what he believes for the direction for the company. He's not just looking for a revenue source. He's looking to more or less create a better world. Um, and this can be done by the work that Palantir does, which is going to go into later in the video. So just to move forward with Karp, so from the start, they have repeatedly said in the S1 filing that they turned down opportunity to sell, collect, or mine data. He believes other technology companies, including some of the largest in the world, have built their entire businesses on doing just that, aka Facebook, Google. Um, so yeah, this is taken from the S1 filing. There's a letter before the file at the start of the filing where he more or less grills into the big tech companies these days, and he says that they're focused on just selling data to companies regardless of its ethical issues, and to get a bigger market share and other things like that, rather than actually just solving problems. They focus on just growing their market cap. And there's another quote there from the S1 filing where he says that our software is used to target terrorists and to keep soldiers safe. If we go and ask someone to put themselves in harm's way, we believe that we have a duty to give them what they need to do their job. So that says a lot about his ability to lead Palantir into the future, where he's not just looking to just make a lot of money, increase his net worth, or he's trying to really have a purpose for the software that they're building at Palantir. And so from there, I want to go on to his belief on innovating with governments. A lot of tech companies have rejected their work with the government, a big one being Google. And he goes on to say that, yes, the US government. Here are the top search results. No, stop. So he said in an interview with New York Times where the US government is a front runner of information by giving contracts to US companies such as Hewlett Packard, which built sonar, radar, and aviation equipment in World War II. And that has led to much of the innovation we enjoy today. For this reason, Karp believes that there needs to be a higher level of called cohesion between public and private sectors. And another thing is the internet that we all use today, that was built by the military for communication purposes. So we can see that this whole working with the government, trying to aid the government, does not have to be seen as a bad thing. It is actually a good thing depending on who the government is. Um, and so it's important to understand that, yes, they work with the government contracts, but they're also trying to move away from that. But the only reason they work with the government contracts is to protect the ideology of Palantir, as he does have a bachelor in philosophy, a PhD in philosophy. So he's quite a big thinker, and he's looking at things from a higher level perspective than just the balance sheet. So this is another quote from the S1 filing where they say, we have chosen sides. Our SAF software is used by the United States and its allies in Europe and around the world. Some companies work with the United States as well as its adversaries. We do not. We believe that our government and commercial customers value this clarity. So he has clearly drawn a line in the sand to say who he's going to work with, what type of people he's going to work with, what type of companies he's going to work with. He's looking, he's looking far beyond just to increase revenue for the next quarter, to increase share price over the long term. He's really looking to give a strong use case for the software beyond just creating just software because it's to generate revenues. So now want to go on to the role of government contracts and the privacy laws that can come into play. The first is the majority of government contracts are subject to termination for convenience provisions, and the US federal government is prohibited from exercising contract options more than 1 year in advance. As a result, there can be no guarantee that our contracts with government customers will not be terminated or that contract options will not be exercised. So that was from the S1 filing as well. And so that kind of gives us an understanding of what could happen with their contracts. These contracts do make up roughly 50% of their revenue right now. So obviously a change in policy, a change in administration, or change in just how they feel about the work that they do. The work that they do is quite controversial, where they don't, as I said, don't sell, as I said in the S1 filing as well, they don't sell, mine, or collect data. They are an application on top of data that's already there from various sources that the companies or the government has, and they use Palantir to analyze that data. So obviously with privacy laws, this could be changing, where if they put a lot more restriction regarding data gathering for the governments, obviously this will affect companies as well. But so in doing that could affect their ability to generate revenues into the future, and could overall just terminate their contracts as well, which in that statement we know the government can do. So from there, I want to go into their actual S1 filing and show you a risk factor that they outlined in their filing with regards to privacy laws. So this is in their S1 filing, which I've more or less put onto a Word document and just commented a little and highlighted. So the risk factor here that they say is our business is subject to complex and evolving US and non-US laws and regulation regarding privacy, data protection and security, technology protection, and other matters. Many of these laws and regulations are subject to change and uncertain interpretation, and could result in claims, changes to our business practices, monetary penalties, increased cost of operations, and otherwise harm our business. I'm just going to skip past that and just go on to the big section here. What they say is there are currently basically a lot of proposals going on within the government, especially within the Californian government, where they have the California Consumer Privacy Act, which got instated in 2018, which regulates the processing of personal information of California residents and increases the privacy and security obligations of entities handling certain personal information of California residents, including requiring covered companies to provide new disclosures to California customers and afford such consumers new abilities to opt out of certain sales of personal information. And that particular act came into effect on January 1st, 2020. And there's also another Privacy Rights Act, which is due to be coming into effect on November 3rd, 2020, on the election day. So basically, they say if this initiative is approved by the Californian voters, the CPRA, or the California Privacy Rights Act, would significantly modify the CCPA, which is the California Consumer Privacy Act, potentially resulting in further uncertainty and requiring us to incur additional costs and expenses in an effort to comply. And this more or less takes place in every other country that they operate in. They have some these days. These sort of laws do exist to certain extents, and they need a lot of lawyers and whatnot to kind of understand what they can or can't do. And obviously, this is something more that would affect companies who sell or mine data, but they will Palantir will be working with companies who do that. So even though that company mine data, if they are working with them, just to increase their future company prospects, increasing customers, general things that a company would do with data, this could be detrimental to the company if certain governor, certain state actors look at this and go, this company's doing this. According to this act, they can't do it. As I said before, uncertain interpretation is that, as we know, most of legislation is not very clear on what people can or can't do. It's really up to the governors and the government at the time and the administration to see what they will do about it. And so these things can affect them, and more or less this will impact on the company's operations, as they would have to have more legal framework around the things that they do, and would need more operational expenses would basically go into it to understand what they can or can't do. And let's say they do get into a court case, that can be even worse, just for the company in terms of just their share price or people willing to work with them, just the fact that they're in the news for data protection issues. So that's something that they would have to take into account when doing their contracts with companies or with governments. And the next one I want to go on to is this note regarding their stance on who they work with. So they're clearly saying this, that we do not work with the Chinese Communist Party and have chosen not to host our platforms in China, which may limit our growth prospects. So the reason for that is our leadership believes, aka leadership being Peter Thiel, Alex Karp, and Stephen Cohen, believes that working with the Chinese Communist Party is inconsistent with our culture and mission. We do not consider any sales opportunities within with the Chinese Communist Party, and do not host our platforms in China, and impose limitations on access to our platforms in China in order to protect our intellectual property, to promote respect for and defend privacy and civil liberties protections, and to promote data security. Our decision to avoid this large potential market may limit our growth prospects and could adversely impact our business, result in operations, financial condition, and just the competitors could, gain more revenue, whatever. But like, the main thing there to understand is that regarding the data protection, as we know, China spies on the citizens, and the technology that Palantir builds more or less has the same ability to do that. So it would have been quite, I guess, bad from a company standpoint, and possible legal action as well, if a company such as Palantir was working with the Chinese Communist Party. Just in terms of it's just being a scary prospect to think of, just for Americans. And so it's good to see that they laid that out, and that obviously rules out any communist regime, any communist country. They clearly stated in their S1 as well, earlier in their S1, that they only work with liberal democracies, and that they don't work with any company that has imposes restrictions on privacy, like to defend privacy and civil liberties. So that's something to, I guess, be proud of, and to have a see as an opportunity to invest in the company, that this could be something that could limit their legal action but I know they've been hit in the heat for I guess working with Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency and other agencies that focus on catching criminals, and they basically extended that out to being, well, you could possibly impose that on civilians, and that could be a problem, and that's also something that could potentially affect the company in the long term, where just the fact that they have the technology and it's being used in the agencies of the government, um, that under a different administration, under a different type of, uh, I guess, feeling towards privacy and security, they could just say, look, we don't want to just deal with this company at all. Even though we understand that you only use it for criminals and to fight terrorists, but maybe just maybe you could use it for the civilians. So we don't want to deal with you. So the government could potentially say that, or the agencies could say that, or that could bring a lot of unwanted attention to the company itself. And so with that being said, with regards to the 2020 election and to see who would be in government, I know that recently Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, um, she's a congresswoman in the in the U.S. government. She basically wanted to look into Palantir for their work with immigration and customs enforcement agencies, and also that the fact that their S1 filing basically gives Alex Karp, Peter Thiel, and Stephen Cohen the highest, I guess, wording rights. So they basically control the future of the company. They which is something I covered in an earlier video. You can see that on my YouTube channel. It's Palantir full stock analysis. So uncovering Palantir is the name of the video. So you can have a look at that. I go into detail about just regarding how the voting structures works for Palantir. So Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez had trouble with that, and they didn't like that they were doing such a restriction on the voting rights, as many companies, because with many other companies, what would happen is you own one share, you get one vote on the policies of the company going forward. But with this particular company, with Palantir, basically your vote doesn't really matter. uh, so that's something that's been in there, but that kind of faded away really quick, so that was good. But with regards to the election, Karp said in an interview with Bloomberg that the company's work with ICE dated back to a 2011 contract under President Barack Obama. Karp also said that Palantir depends on corporate work, much of it in Europe, where Trump is unpopular. So we can see that both those things, much of its work, corporate work in Europe, where they have very intense privacy laws and data protection laws. They're doing work there for a long time now, and so they're still operating very much there. So that's good. And also the fact that their contract with ICE, which they've been, I guess, criticized for, that actually started under President Obama. So that's Democratic government, and they gave them the contract. So that's a good thing. So they don't have any big issues with regards to the democratic side of things, or with regards to privacy and all the security and just family separation issues that comes with working with ICE. But in also 2017, the Trump administration dealt Palantir a setback by using the courts to effectively block Palantir from being considered for an army contract. So basically, the effect of this legal proceeding was that commercial products has to be used before custom ones. That should be custom, not customer. Lol. But custom ones to being built. Essentially, what happened was Palantir was in talks with defense, and they were trying to get a contract with them, but the defense company, or sorry, the defense agency wanted to build their own custom built product, and Palantir basically put out a ruling to say, no, you can't do that. You have to, if there's a commercial product that's viable, you have to use the commercial product before you can use a custom product. And then the Trump administration went after Palantir to say, well, no, we're not going to do that. And so they won the court case twice against the administration and the defense to have their platform, their software to be used by the defense. and that contract was worth nearly $900 million. And from there onwards, if you have a look at their S1 filing or just look at their revenues, basically from 2011 to 2017, they were sitting around $2-5 million there. And the moment that they had this overturned, their revenue just shot up 10-15 times, because this means that now this more or less sets a stage for using Palantir wherever possible inside the government. If with regards to catching criminals, fighting terrorists, regarding to corruption, just anything that requires data analytics, they would more or less have to use Palantir. And obviously Palantir would be in competition with other software agencies, but if they're choosing Palantir because they're better, that's straight up what's happening there. But just the fact that they can't build custom products anymore and they would have to use Palantir's products, it's a great move going forward. But just from those 2 points, from them being under contract under President Obama and the Trump administration actually trying to block Palantir from the Army contract, shows us that, and them still being able to achieve it. So that as investors, we can see that Palantir can generate revenue both under a Republican government and a Democratic government. And with that court case, that going forward, the government, unless if there's a law against privacy and data analytics, even still, I think it will just more or less create more operational expenses for the company, but they would still go forward have to use a commercial product such as Palantir. So from there, I want to just go on to a video of the Los Angeles Police Department, which uses Palantir to catch criminals in that area.
Palantir is a product that allows us to use a bunch of the information systems that we already have available, but kind of make sense of all the noise that's out there. For years, we've had stovepipe systems that have a lot of information, but don't talk to each other and don't compare that information. And Palantir allows us to do that. It's a really important tool for investigations. It's a really important tool for crime fighting.
What we liked about the Palantir solution is number one, they're problem solvers. So they get in there, and no matter what the data, what kind of form it's in, they're going to integrate it in a way that it's usable.
Palantir brings in many databases into one system. Currently, Palantir brings in the following databases: crime and arrest report information, field interview cards, automatic license plate reader information, DMV information, rap sheets, and we are working with Palantir engineers to bring in more information.
My name is Officer Gamero, and I'm assigned here at Newton Division. We use Palantir on a daily basis. That's one of the first databases I log into. There's something happening every day in this area, and the faster we could get that information to our detectives, the faster they could get onto the case and hopefully get the person that's responsible for the crime in custody. Palantir software helped us to identify a suspect vehicle that was used in a robbery. We had a couple of victim statements saying that there was a gray Cadillac involved. With the system, I was able to conduct a query with the partial plate of 671. Through the many choices it gave me back, or possible matches it gave me, we were able to obtain a picture of one particular Cadillac, which the victim was able to identify as a suspect vehicle. It was just a number of days later that detectives saw the vehicle traveling northbound on one of our major corridors, went ahead and followed the vehicle and actually observed them committing a robbery. The suspects were then taken into custody at that time.
Recently, one of our divisions in North Hollywood, a crime analyst picked up a very partial piece of information relative to a homicide. First name only, and a physical description. Normally that kind of thing, it's nice to know, maybe it'd be worth something later, it goes in the back of the book, it doesn't go anywhere. But by inputting that information into Palantir, she was able to work up a suspect that became a really viable piece of information for the detectives. That's the kind of thing that these information systems bring. They can take the smallest clue and turn it into something big.
The next step with Palantir would be to get more and more people trained. And we're not just going to dump this tool on you. We'll bring you in for some formalized training here at Racer. We'll have people from the company available to teach you. Then we'll also have people available from Palantir to come out to the area to work with the end user. And we'll, on an ongoing basis, have racer personnel available for technical assistance. There'll be a help desk and some other things. So it's not just a program, you come in, you get 8-hour training, and then we're gone.
There is a lot of time involved in this. There is a lot of effort involved in this, and there is a considerable cost and a change in the way that we do things. But I think that the end result is going to be well worth the effort. I think that the end result will allow us to keep LA safer and allow investigators and police officers to do their jobs better.
So that was a great video there. So we could see very much into the actual software that the police department uses, how I guess interactive it is, and how there was pictures, there was different things. You can drag and drop things. You can change how everything looks. And the big thing about that though is the fact that if we go back to the start here, so that picture right there with the vehicles, the crime, arrest, files, like that would be different for different companies. So all companies will not see the same thing. So if they gave that to the defense, it would look different. If they gave that to a particular operation in the army that's happening in wherever, it will look different for their operations. There's different kind of softwares, internal software that they can use besides this top level Palantir software here. And so those all the various things that this platform can do that they gave to the LAPD can be seen in their arrest filings, which I covered in my other video where I went through each different type of tool that the officers have at their hand. And that's the same for different companies, either that be a commercial company or inside, like contractors inside the government, and also obviously the army as well, where they can use different screens, different techniques to, I guess, get the job done. And another point on the video is the fact that so this is the interactivity I'm talking about. So there's links, and obviously this is all something that the officer who was working on that particular case would have created himself. He would have got the data from particular sources that they would already have informed. It wasn't like Palantir created the sources for the police department. They more or less integrated the sources of the police department into the Palantir system for them to have ease of access when going on to cases. And the final thing I want to talk about on this video is the fact that they had engineers come in and work with the particular detectives and officers who can help them, not help them in terms of their cases, like, talk about it, but just in terms of how to use the software, like what can they do? Well, like give them an idea of how far and how useful this software can be, then looking at it from a high level perspective, as most general software is used given by companies such as Microsoft and Google and other data analytics companies. They more or less give you the same thing. It doesn't matter who you are, what you do. You more or less have a same use case, and the Palantir obviously doesn't do that. These engineers, they're not just there to talk to them. If the particular officer or for a particular case, they wanted something very unique, this, I guess, software engineer or consultant could go in, go back to the office. There is a ability in the Palantir software to have a master code, so where you could code on top of what Palantir already gives you to make a more custom build for yourself, for your particular operation. So he could go in and do something similar, which could give the officers working on the case more ability to maneuver their, I guess, actions regarding to the case. So that's a big thing about just how the software works and how Palantir works with these agencies. And in terms of like just the political climate with regards to this, they are working with our police departments, our armies, or I should say US armies, US police departments, wherever these type of analytics are necessary. And it's important to know that they don't gather any of the details and sell the details of criminals just what the company can do. They're obviously received permission from the LAPD to kind of view that particular case. That could be a case that they just made up on the spot, honestly. Like, it doesn't, like, that face doesn't look real. I mean, it looks animated, but regardless of that, these things could be just done with the officer on the spot, where they just made stuff up and didn't really think too much of it. Obviously, that one case study with regards to the phone call here would have been real, but nonetheless, the company isn't trying to infiltrate or sell the data that they get from these internal agencies, this sensitive data. They're just looking to help out and help them kind of make their job easier. And also another thing is they're not displacing the police officers. The police officers still on top have to do their detective work, have to go find the criminals and do other things with regards to the case. Obviously follow up leads that Palantir builds, that they build through the data. So they're not displacing any of the officers. It actually requires more skill from the officers to kind of connect the dots and kind of move forward with the case. So that's a really awesome thing to see from Palantir. So with that being said, I'll just go back to the PowerPoint and move forward from there. So Alex Karp goes on to say in an interview with Bloomberg that, like, so we have to understand, like, this is not a technical person. He's not, going in and looking at different type of software, different type of codes. He has engineers who work for that. They have departments. They have basically, I believe he said in an interview that everyone at Palantir is an engineer. They all work on the software side of things. They don't really have any salespeople. Now they have salespeople as they're becoming more commercial. But before they didn't have any salespeople. All the people you're seeing in that video, they were all, I think there was only one guy, but he's a software engineer basically. So they're all people who can who work with code. And Alex Karp on top of that is a philosopher who guides the company in the right direction that it needs to be in. As we can see that this kind of technology can go bad very quickly. And so they will need someone who does not look at a revenue source. Obviously, the data that they're getting from these companies, obviously they could do more than just sell their data to, do an analytics of the data for LAPD and other agencies. Like, obviously they could easily do more than that. They could be like Google, build a product, get analytics, have a massive data analytics source, and sell that data. They could easily do that, but they don't do that because they don't believe. They believe in privacy. They believe in liberty, and that's why Alex Karp goes on to say this quote from the interview where he says, "Does the average American trust a platform company, including Google, to decide whether we should be a dominant player in AI?" Which he asked rhetorically. And is that something we want to outsource to a small number of platforms in a very small part of the world, aka Silicon Valley, with people who are from a very narrow sliver of society? I reject that, and I reject that a handful of people in Palo Alto are going to determine what the lawful execution of policy is. So he's very much, I guess, agrees with the policies that the government builds. Not agrees with them, but he accepts them. He sees that they had a process, they went through the process, and this is what the outcome was, and we're going to adhere to the outcome. So they don't, and we can see right now, like Facebook and Twitter are going to Capitol Hill for a hearing where they are seen in meddling with the elections, more or less, where they were basically taking down the tweets from New York Post regarding Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden's involvement with a Ukrainian company and them getting money and, other things like that. So, like, just bad things that they're getting into. And these companies were voluntarily shutting that down so that doesn't reach the wider audience, so it wouldn't, I guess, affect the election. And they're saying, look, we don't do that. We're a platform. We work as a platform. The people who are making the decisions, they're on Capitol Hill. They're the ones who make the decision. They make the policies. All we have to do is adhere to that. and he does not believe that Silicon Valley, even though they create very awesome technologies, they shouldn't be dictating how people are going about their daily lives, or they shouldn't be dictating what people can see and what they can't see. So that's obviously not something any average CEO would say. That's something a real thinker, someone who thinks deeply about the problems of society and doesn't just sit around. And he's trying to make Palantir work in hands with the government, work in hands with technologies companies, or create a path for technology companies to go down to say you don't have to be a company which gains from putting other people down. You can gain from delivering actual useful technology. So the key points I want you to take out from this video is basically that Alex Karp is liberal. Palantir's voting structure, which you can view in my other video, is there to protect the democratic ideology behind Palantir and not to harm the institutional or retail investor. Palantir has said in their S1 that they'll never deal with non-liberal democracies like China. Alex Karp has publicly stated that Palantir will continue to do work with ICE, law enforcement, and intelligence agencies, because the reason they believe to do this more than sell to advertisers. So that's kind of the options that you have. Either you have a company who sells to, I guess, law enforcement agencies and intelligence agencies and immigration agencies, or you have a company who sells to advertisers who just bombard you with just ads to make you buy stuff which you don't need. Or you can, give your money to companies such as Palantir, and they can give you the technology to make the streets safer, make the job of law enforcement easier, and make it more efficient to run, I guess, policies essentially, because you have this company who can deal with law enforcement in a way that no other company has ever dealt with law enforcement, and they're not in it for the money. They're in it for the public safety, public good. So that's a really big point there. And Karp also stated that claims that a president could steer the US to an authoritarian world powered by artificial intelligence were too extreme, and that America is a complicated modern democracy with numerous checks and balances, so that no one person has the ability to do insane things. So this can be seen with regards to the stimulus checks that they're trying to put through right now. I mean, no one seems to be able to do that, and it's a major back and forth. And obviously that's something that's bad for all the people who are suffering. And I think, but it goes both ways. If the president could just, whenever you want to, just do whatever he wants, like, oh, we're just going to send out $4 trillion to the people because they need it. He could also easily mandate a full lockdown. And he hasn't done that yet. He hasn't done any of that. There were the governors who are doing that, who are mandating it, and the president came out saying, "Look, stop. We don't need that. Stop doing it." So if that was China, obviously we saw in China earlier in the year where they more just shut down the country, and they can more or less manipulate the numbers. They can manipulate the currency. They can manipulate a lot of other things. They don't really have a democracy. So there's a lot of things that happen there, and Karp is trying to say, even though we have a similar technology here, just the way that America's built makes it hard for that technology to be used in the extreme, and that's why the voting structure is created as well. So with this technology, obviously someone who's from another country could gain a major stake in the company. If there's a voting structure, even though they have a major stake in the company, they can't enforce the ideology of the company. They have to kind of more or less adhere to whatever Alex Karp does, or Peter Thiel, or Stephen Cohen. So that's a big thing there. I think we saw in a recent article I read, which is, I think it's quite old now, I think it's about a month ago, where SoftBank was more or less manipulating the NASDAQ, where they were buying huge call options to kind of move the stock price. I don't think that ever went through or anything, or it wasn't big enough for the SEC to have a look at it. But that's something they could do. That other countries could have a major stake in these companies that have massive technologies and could steer the way that they use their technology. Um, and Palantir does not believe in that. That's one of the reasons why they've actually moved out of Silicon Valley. Karp has stated that they've moved out of Silicon Valley and they're looking to, I guess, not be in with that circle and not being with that ideology. And they're really on protecting liberal democracies and privacy. Um, so that's one thing there. And I think the biggest takeaway that someone should know when they're buying the shares or they're buying, like, what type of company they're buying. As much as if when you're buying Tesla, you're buying Elon Musk. When you're buying Amazon, you're buying Jeff Bezos. When you're buying Apple, you're more or less buying Steve Jobs, even though he has passed away. The company that he has built, the culture he has built, is still there. So when you're buying Apple, you're buying that. And when you're buying Nvidia, you're buying Jensen Huang. So all these leaders or these CEOs were visionaries, and they're people who are looking to do more than just I guess get higher revenues in the next term. They're looking to really create a better world. Not too sure what Amazon's Jeff Bezos is doing. He's doing everything, so not sure what his ideology is. But we can see someone like Tesla with Elon Musk. He has publicly stated that he aims for a cleaner future, a more sustainable future, and he wants to be able to go to Mars. He doesn't see a future where there's no innovation. He doesn't understand there's no point to living if there's none of that. So that's why he curates so much. That's why he does so much. That's why I'm also investing in Tesla. So you're really buying the CEO when you're buying a company, especially something that is so influential with their technology such as Palantir. So with that being said, would you rather have a company such as Google or Facebook use your data at their will to monetize you, or have the government outsource their data to a company such as Palantir to catch criminals and arm the defense agencies to fight terrorists? So this is not a question just for the people who buy shares in the company, or people in Congress, or people in just general society who kind of look weirdly at these companies, such as Palantir, who do data analytics. But also for Fortune 500 companies such as Amazon, who can be a customer to Palantir, or even Tesla, who can be a customer to Palantir, where they can improve their manufacturing process, even if it's just that. So that's another thing that he has stated, not with regards to Tesla, but with regards to Google and Facebook and their data. Most of these companies, their technology comes from Silicon Valley, but most of that Silicon Valley, when it was founded, when it became Silicon Valley, that was through government contracts. That was through creating technologies that were made to create a better world, a safer world. So these companies that are using that data now, they're kind of going on a different path to what they were meant to be on. And Palantir is looking to change that by just by being a company that works with government and makes it that so that it doesn't have a bad connotation to it. And also, they don't have to monetize data. They have a different way of generating revenue and creating value in the world. So with that being said, I just want to thank you for your time. I just want to say, if you've liked the video, make sure you smash that like button. And if you want to subscribe for more videos, please do so. It really helps me create more videos, and just to look at different things. And obviously comment down below. I want to look at maybe you're sick of Palantir, maybe you wanted something a bit different. Maybe I'm looking to make a few videos on Amazon and also Tesla. So but if you want something a bit more out there, such as Clover Health, which has been endorsed by Palantir. He's a billionaire investor. He runs Virgin Galactic and also Social Capital, and he was an early investor in Facebook. So he has a company that he put through with a SPAC. That's a health insurance company, basically. So it looks interesting. I want to have a look at that, and once I finish understanding the company, I'll obviously put a video up on YouTube letting you guys know. But if those type of things that you're interested in, please comment below. Let me know what other companies you would like, what you'd like to see. Maybe you want to go more into the filing. Maybe you wanted to see maybe more on the numbers side of things rather than just the actual ideology. But yeah, just let me know in the comments below, and yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks, guys.